In this video, I'm going to tell you how you can get the best out of your DJI Avata flying it in manual mode, how to take off and fly it, how to get the best cinematic footage out of it, and last but not least, how to land it safe in manual mode. Stay tuned. What is happening, everybody? It is your boy Sean, and I'm Yana. Whatever you are, you're doing fantastic. This video could really benefit you if you're just at the beginning of your FPV journey, but it could also really benefit you if you're already a veteran FPV pilot and you just got the Avata. Remember, we're going to be flying this thing on manual mode only. Specifically for this video, I made a video on how to get the best out of the DJI Avata in normal mode and sport mode for scenarios like real estate. Link up here to go ahead and check that video out. DJI is making it really easy for people who want to learn FPV for the first time. I mean, I wish the Avata was out when I was starting out my FPV journey. But before, what made it hard to learn FPV was, first of all, the quad building aspect of it. Even if you didn't build your own quad, you still needed to understand how it was built and know the components, because of the fact that FPV breaks down and crashes all the time. And another aspect was that you had to deal with LiPo batteries. You had to get to know them, how to take care of them. And after all those things, you still had to learn FPV in acro mode right off the bat, and just getting used to the sticks and getting a hang of flying, diving and going through things. The whole landing process made it really challenging for people to want to make that decision to want to start flying FPV. I've been flying FPV for just over 2 years, so I've paid my dues. I've had my fair share of crashes and lost drones, and I've spent endless hours in forums trying to get some answers to fix my freaking quad. But now, DJI has made it a lot easier to fly FPV. Easy how? Well, in many different ways. One is the battery. From dealing with LiPo batteries that could, in most cases only fly for 5 minutes, and you always had to carry a giant charging with you everywhere you went, to now having batteries that fly up to 10 minutes ripping through a track in manual mode. You can easily charge it with USB. That is already a huge plus. The second why is the safety aspect of it. You already have GPS built in these things, and all the return home stuff is already set up, and it is a lot easier and more reliable than the RTH that we had to manually set on our classic FPV quad systems. But most importantly, you have a freaking brake button on this thing, and that is huge. This eliminates a lot of panic attacks, reduces a whole lot of heart rates. You know exactly what I mean if you fly an FPV before on acro mode. Now, I'm not saying with DJI making things easier, you can just go ahead and pick up the Avata and flying in manual mode. It still takes a lot of practice to get that FPV perspective dialed in into your brain cells, and that only comes with experience, my friend. Now, why am I making this video? I almost forgot. Right, I'm taking my 2 years of experience flying acro FPV, and I've been flying the Avata for the past 3 months in different scenarios. And what I'm doing is I'm mixing these two experiences to help you fly better in FPV. I'm going to use the word comfort FPV with the DJI Avata. But before I do that, we got to talk about this video's sponsor, Epidemic Sound. If you create drone footage, there's one thing that you definitely need, and that is a killer track to slap on that epic FPV drone footage. I mean, you're not going to upload that drone footage sounding like this on your social media, right? Well, let's only hope not. Well, my friend, I have some good news for you. This year, I've teamed up with Epidemic Sound to bring you an exclusive discount on their music services. Now you can get a 30-day free trial on their personal plan that gives you access to over 35,000 music tracks and 90,000 sound effects. But because it's Cyber Week, you get an extra 2 months for 75% off. And any music or sound effects you choose during this time, even if you cancel your plan, will stay safe and protected. But remember, the discount is valid for a personal plan, and the offer will be available only for 5 days. So make sure not to miss out on this offer and this diverse music catalog of Epidemic Sound. Link in my description, go ahead and check it out. And ever since learning FPV, I always wanted to fly after a fast-moving object, and one of those fantasies was always riding next to a motocross rider in a dirt track. So I started stalking some of them on Instagram, and about 8 weeks ago, I started a conversation with a gentleman named Tom Koch, who happened to be in my radius, in my map, and we planned and canceled like 8 times literally because we both had really busy schedules, but we finally met, and this is the result of me and Tom Koch getting together. fast, but that was dope, dude.
Yeah. It was quite nice with the sun, no?
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I almost hit one guy, almost hit my drone. I was so, I think I hit his shoulder, like slightly. But good, it was awesome. Alright, in this scenario, I want to fly manual mode and manual mode only. So many fast turns in front of me, and manual mode allows me to be free and fast. And you usually want to do this with a Cinewhoop because, you know, we're close on a track to these riders, and if we hit them, we don't want to, God forbid, hurt them. Almost hit that guy. Oh my God. That guy came out of nowhere. Now to fly this thing in manual mode, there's a couple of things that you need to do first. Go into the goggle settings by swiping right, select control, then remote controller. At the bottom, we need to change custom mode from sports mode to manual mode. And the second step is to go up in gain and expo, and you need to switch off M mode altitude limit. Alright, the first time I flew the Avata on manual mode, I took off from the ground just because of old habits. Don't do that. It is a lot easier to do it the DJI way. What you want to do is you want to take off the drone in normal or sport mode on line of sight and just bring it up to a hovering position. After that, in the screen, when you switch back to manual mode, you have to bring the sticks into the green spots and keep it there for about 3 seconds, and instantly, you're in manual mode. Now, I hope you have enough experience to handle the drone. Now, when you get the Avata, the rates are setting in a way that it flies really aggressively, especially on the roll axis. But because I personally use FPV for cinematic purposes, and I don't usually do a 180 or a 360 roll, so I needed the roll stick to be a lot less sensitive. So I made some adjustments in the rates to make it more smoother for me to fly. So in the remote controller settings, gain and expo, this is how you access the rates. And a couple of adjustments that I made was that I just reduced the sensitivity in the yaw axis to 100 from 180, just because I don't do any crazy yaws. It just made the whole experience a lot more smoother. And on the expos, I generally bumped them up to 0.65 to just make everything a lot more slower and smoother. On the pitch, I left it at 0.5, which makes it a little bit more aggressive than the other axis, because I wanted that extra push if I needed to. So we're in the air in manual mode, and I can't really give you a lot of tips flying in acro or manual mode. This is the part where you either have the eye and the experience for it or you don't. I really recommend for you to take the time and practice enough before you start chasing after a motocross rider. But if I was to give you one tip, flying FPV is all about anticipations. You need to always look at the spot you're about to fly in within the next 1 or 2 seconds, which is usually right above the center of the frame. In this case, I had to anticipate my flight route before these turns and these obstacles that were ahead of me, and I was flying close to the track, so I had to look at the obstacles on my path 2 seconds before I even got there. But again, this was my first time doing this, so I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait to do it again. But one thing that I would change about this whole thing is that next time if I go there, I want to try to fly closer to the riders, and I want to be able to fly faster. But unfortunately, with the GoPro 11 mini mounted on top, it was too heavy and I was not able to fly as fast as I wanted to. All right, let's talk about camera quality and camera settings. I had flown with the Avata and I just knew that it doesn't hold up its end as much as I wanted to when it comes to the quality of the camera. I mean, at least for my standards, it might very well suit your needs, but for me, especially had a hard time with light. I wasn't really satisfied when I was flying it indoors in Mallorca. So as soon as the Hero 11 Pro came out, I went ahead and ordered it. I was expecting it to be a lot lighter, but apparently it's only about 20 grams lighter than the actual Hero 11. Good thing is that it doesn't have a screen at the back of it, so if you crash it, you're not left with a broken screen. But the downside is that, it doesn't have batteries and you have to kind of charge it with a USB stick. So when you're out there in the field and the sun is about to set and you happen to be running out of batteries, you're pretty much screwed. Also, another problem I had with it was it had a hard time connecting to the Quick app. I don't know if it was only this GoPro or not, but I had a really tough time when the sun was setting. I couldn't really tell my exposure. I wanted to know if I need to use the ND filters or not. I'm sure you've been there before. So all in all, I was really satisfied with the quality that it put out. Right now, I believe this is my best option right now. There's the GoPro 10 Bones, but you need to connect it to a LiPo battery, which would make the drone a lot heavier, but you can also solder it through power outputs to the Avata, but you would still have to connect it through the quick app. So I'm stuck with this for now until the technology catches up. Now let's jump into camera settings. Tom, you ready? Yes, sir. I'm just putting my camera settings on the camera. I wish I could ride behind you, but my back is a little bit fucked up. If I want to tell you a little bit about the camera settings and the settings that I have on the drone, I want to fly manual, of course, and I am banking on the footage of the GoPro, but I'm going to be recording via the Avata as well. I'm going to compare the footage together, perhaps in another video. I'm going to shoot in 4K, 100 frames per second, so let's dial in the camera settings first. This is the GoPro 11 mini. It doesn't have a display. That means that I have to connect it to my phone via the quick app to fire it up. I'm gonna enable preview. And then first things first, dial in the resolution. We're gonna do 4K 120 in case I want to do some slow motion. Camera angle is going to be wide. ISO, I'm gonna tell it not to go over 800. Because I don't want a whole lot of noise. White balance, we're gonna keep it at 5,000. It's nice and sunny outside. The color needs to be flat, just so we can grade it later. The next thing we need to keep an eye out is, of course, the shutter speed to get that nice, beautiful motion blur. Now the frame rate was 120 frames per second. That means that the shutter speed should technically be at 240. Even at shutter speed at 240, it's still too bright, so I had to pop in a couple of ND filters, and I ended up using ND8. Now the last thing I want to talk about is landing in manual mode. With the DJI Avata, you don't have to master your landing when you're flying in acro drones, which is something that usually takes a long time to master. All you need is to bring the drone close to you and hit the brake button. That will take the Avata out of manual mode and puts it into normal mode. And all you need to do is take the goggles off, in line of sight, land it like a normal DJI drone. That's it. Usually when you're flying acro classic FPV, you have a couple of crashes or some bad landings at least. But with the Avata, all 3 batteries I had were crashless, if you will. And other than a few mud sprays on the drone and the camera, they both came home safe. Now, if I was to tell you what I think about the DJI Avata up until now, and if I was to put it in a couple of sentences, I would say that it's not the best drone for flying aggressive FPV, diving from mountains and whatnot. Because it has a prop wash problem, you'll definitely notice it that, it has a hard time kind of keeping it together. That being said, this thing is a beast if you want to fly indoors, and cinewhooping indoors is a hot topic these days. I actually made a video comparing the DJI Avata flying indoors alongside a normal Cinewhoop ProTech 25. Click the link right up here to check it out. Guys, if you found this video useful, you know what to do. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. Until we see each other next time, Sean Lamb.